And welcome to Aquarian Anarchy. Tonight we will not be joined by Chad unless he pops in for a moment. So Nicco, and I are going to have to hold this fort down. As you can probably guess, we're going to cut it up about some spiritual crap. Not that Chad doesn't, because he does. But yeah. Uh, oh, looks like we are not on Rumble.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not the tech savvy guy either.
Yeah,
But
it'll
Chad, you
just
kind
have
of
to
lead me
be.
back, even though you called me an N-word. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I was like, when this shit happened?
Chad did not call me an N-word. No, Chad,
Right.
Chad's one of those.
But anyhow, we're going to talk about God and how to talk to God and talk with God. There's a bunch of different ways, but first we got to get this out of the way. So our quote for tonight comes from Rumi, and he says, "Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation." So that being said, we're going to talk about talking with God. So I wanted to. One of the reasons I wanted to put that up as the quote is because I do think it's factual, even though I have spoken to with God on many levels. The big guy, the totality of all that is, the
omnipotent of the omnipresence.
right. I ain't talking to him. My brain would fry. I think Chad's absolutely right that if you talk to God, my face just looks like it's on.
Have you ever faced infinity before?
Yeah, no.
That's.
But
I don't think we'd be able to comprehend infinity.
No, we can't comprehend two, much less oneness or infiniteness.
What are you talking about? We're in the spectrum of 1 billion different genders. Okay, I think we can. For sure. I think we can compartmentalize at least.
Yeah, it's funny though when we're talking about genders. When my daughter said, "Hey, to my friend has a dog, and I think it's a girl." She wasn't like, "I think that it's." Not, I think it's like the Z or.
Wait, I have a question. Is that a thing for animals? Like you can misgender an animal?
I would guess. That'll be the next thing they're pushing.
I'm sorry. I don't want to like disrespect nobody's dog and call
it non-binary dog.
I didn't mean to call your dog a dude.
Right. So. And to be clear, whatever somebody wants me to call them, I'll call them whatever.
Yeah,
no, they want me to call them Benji. I'm good. Right.
It's like I don't. People making fun of black people. Let's just make fun of each other. Like
exactly. If we can't have fun, then I don't know what. So Nicco and I had a conversation about what we wanted to talk about in Chad's absence, and we thought that this would be a good topic, and we wanted to kind of start with kind of like divination and those kinds of topics, and because that is a way to talk to God. But I want to take a step back to those in our audience who might be Christian or might be from more of a more traditional spiritual path. Talking with God can be prayer. I mean, you can just be, but that's talking to God a lot. And for Christians that don't get it, they ask a bunch of shit of God. But people that do get it talk to God. And and I do believe that through prayer, and in my life I've experienced this, that you can get some answers back. Now they don't always, it's not always,
clear. Not clear as fuck. No. It's very ambiguous.
Yeah, for sure. And there are ways to get it clear.
I would say dreams are another good way of conversations with God. Well, your subconscious is letting you know some shit God's been trying to let you know, but I would perceive that dreams are something that God gives you revelations and signs in.
For sure.
So, I mean, I guess that'd be technically a form of talking with God or getting some acknowledgement from God.
Sure. And So I want everyone to recognize, and yes, I'm a weirdo. Nicco's a bit of a weirdo
No,
too.
I'm a straight weirdo. I'm the wise weirdo.
That's right. That's right. And so understand that we're going to kind of come at this from a little bit different of a perspective, but I think talking to God is important, even if you're not talking with God, you're talking to God, because whether or not God listens to you, or whether or not God responds to you, God listens to you. He is definitely hearing what you have to say, because come on, this is the omnipresent totalness. You'd have to go outside of reality, which is impossible, to be able to not be hurt by God. So, I do think it's important, and the reason that I think that it's important is because everyone on the planet, and they've done some research into this needs, and it's kind of where religion comes from. We have a need to believe in some kind of power, and that is greater than us.
Mhm.
And often what happens, and how this kind of relates to anarchism and those kinds of things, is that when people don't personify God, and I'm not saying that all atheists fall into this, I'm not saying that. There are some very good atheists, but often when you don't believe in a God, you wind up believing in the state, and you put faith into humanity, and as everybody can attest.
What you talking about? They're doing that already. They put their faith in state. Like, no offense to like like Christians or the Catholics, but like the Pope and like that whole organization. That's
Sure.
like next to the state. Like that's really intertwined to the state.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, especially nowadays. And so like I was kind of like confused on like how people haven't separated or like really distinguished that they are like a state entity. Like, isn't the Vatican something like its own
Country, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if they've got that much power and like with the government, the all saying like the tangible God, if you will,
Yeah.
like I don't see how like people haven't perceived them to be an entity of the government.
Well, yeah, and then they were, I don't remember the year, but they were ceded powers by the surrounding states of a state. They were given the authority by the other states surrounding them years and years, and this is like a long time ago. They were given that power. They didn't have it forever from the beginning, but the Catholic Church was ceded. It basically made the Pope kind of the president-ish,
Yeah,
the monarch of the Vatican, and everywhere that they touch. But we're kind of getting off into the weeds. So the idea of talking to God and why it's important is because I know myself, I'm trying to do not only my will and what I would like to get out of this lifetime, but I'd like to do some shit for God. God has given me a wonderful life, and I want to repay that. And so I try to pay attention to what He has to say to me, because there's lots of stuff that He has said. So, but I want to dive in first, primarily with divination and how you can use different. And by divination, what that is it is different forms of speaking. Yeah, right. And some examples are like tarot, astrology, throwing stones. There's cowrie shells. There's
you got runes by the Nordic. You got
right.
scarring in the mirror. You got what else is it? Like actually staring at the fire and shit. Like there's many indications that God or an entity is trying to talk with you if you know the specific signs of said divination that you're practicing.
Right. And so just to kind of go with that, what experiences have you had with different divination kinds?
Well,
I not only what kind, but what you've experienced with it.
No, I got you. I got a couple of them. Well, for me, essentially getting started on this journey, It wasn't God per se. It was Saint Michael.
Mm.
This was when I was first starting to smoke my weed and meditate. And one of the things is that one of the like meditation things that I was listening to, they said basically create your own angel. And I did. And I came up with Raphael. And Michael didn't like that name so much. So he like legit projected his lips or a pair of lips. Pause. I don't know if that's like pause.
He projected his lips on you. That sounds a little crazy.
I saw a pair of lips appear in my head. And he was like, not verbatim, but he was like, "Hey, yo, bro, that's not my name." And like, I kind of broke out the trance, like looked around, and I'm like, "Nigga, who said that?" Like, I was kind of worried and perplexed on like, who invaded my mental space to tell me that I named this angel wrong. Mm-hmm. So that was the first experience. The second experience was I asked my ancestors, and I wasn't actually doing a tarot reading, but I asked them about a question. I knew the answer to the question, and you know, just playing dumb, and my ancestors were like, "Are you gonna play dumb?" They started fucking with my my heater, and they were basically sending me codes, and then I looked up that number, and it was like very specific to the situation that I was in, and I was like, "Yeah." So I can't do it, and then like they got mad at me. So yeah, that was the other instance, but yeah,
cool. Yeah, and I've had several experiences. I've been just for people's knowledge, I've been the primary divination tool I use is tarot. I've messed with other stuff just because other divination tools.
No Ouija boards. Didn't you say you can't use them anymore?
I can't use them, and and that's not entirely true. I can use a spirit board if I use magical processes to use it.
Yeah, okay.
Because
certain insignias and shit like that.
Yeah, there's certain like, and we'll get more into this later when we're talking about directly talking to God, mm-hmm. or one of his angels, and but using a Ouija board, for people that don't know, it is a door, and it is a psychic door, and you open it. The problem with a Ouija board and why I can't use them is because they're untested. You have no idea what you're talking to.
Nope.
And just because it says, "Hi, my name is Wilbur," doesn't mean that his name is Wilbur.
It's not the Wilbur that you want it to be. I promise you.
Yeah, it could be Mephistopheles, or
you know,
right?
Hey,
or
demons don't have caller ID. I want you to know.
For sure. And that's one of the things that gets lobbed at a lot of us for the spiritual people for, delving into some of that. Oh, you're just talking to demons. Well, my demons are telling me to check out Jesus. I don't know. My demons are weird, man. My demons are like, Jesus is cool. Be nice to people. I've not heard of demons like this before, but So I don't actually believe that they're demons, but with a Ouija board, you just kick a door open and what comes through?
Any door.
Right. And there are ways to insulate yourself and make it to where you're in control of the board. And you can, and it involves looking a bunch of shit up and knowing what you're doing. So some teenager isn't going to be able to do that. They're not going to devote the time. But I think that through tarot, I'm better myself at doing tarot for others rather than doing it for myself. And I think that's just due to that I'm biased as shit when it comes to me. And my brain interferes with the communication. Have you experienced similar things, or are you good?
Yeah, I noticed that like I have a lot, like a better time doing a reading for somebody else and like breaking it down and understanding the situation that said person is in. But like I do a reading for myself, I've been spot on, but like the timing in it has always been off. Mm-hmm. For example, I called that one of my former friends and I weren't going to be cool. We weren't going to be homies no more. And I'm like, man, it's some bullshit. Lo and behold, we not cool no more. But like, it's no disrespect to him or anything. But like, I've had instances where I've called things out, and it's been like aligned up a lot. This has been much more prevalent and aligned for a different individual opposed to myself. And like the timing aspect of it, like the timing of when I said certain things would happen. Things happen for people, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad it's like on point for everybody else but me, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's similar. Like, you know, I can't tell you how many times, I've done this spread, and it tells them, hey, there's going to be the say I'm talking to a guy, right, and I do a tarot, and I'm like, hey, some girls coming into your life, probably going to be within the next 6 months. They're going to have this color hair, they're going to have that color eyes, blah 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 blah, and lo and behold, 6 months later, they walk in with the chick. You know, that has happened multiple times. Me, I can't get, you're going to have a good week. I can't get that shit for me.
I stopped doing readings for myself about like how my weeks are going to go.
Yeah.
Because I do it, and then like I'd be able to remember some of the cards and like some of the prefaces, but I'm like, bro, this was at the beginning of the week and this is happening at the end. Like, who's the miscommunication on? Am I reading this wrong? So, I mean, it's fun, though. Don't get me wrong. If y'all want a reading, hit me or Marcus up. We'll take care of you. You feel me?
Hit Nicco up, man. I prefer my stuff. I actually use tarot primarily as a spiritual tool for guidance in other ways, like looking for what I do is
he's looking for his missing sock, everybody.
Yeah, I am looking for my missing sock. It's back with Jesus. I found it behind the couch. But no, for me, I use tarot primarily to look at the things around me, to know the symbol set, for instance. And for those that don't know very much about tarot, there are a lot of stuff. There's like planets, elements, zodiacal signs.
It's not simple. It is not a simple thing. Like, it's complex. If you really know, like, it's got like basic like pictures on it, but there's hidden like images in those pictures. There's hidden meanings to those images. There's a lot. It's really a lot.
But for me, what I'll do is like I'll be outside, let's say, and there'll be an image, let's say just by the shadow on a tree, it looks like there's a dude hung upside down on the tree, right? So my mind goes, oh shit, that's the hung man. Right. So I'm looking for sacrifice. And what I see is that is a communication between God and myself. So in a way, I've ingested the tarot, and that is how I communicate using tarot, is more like what would be an omen or those kinds of.
No, you look up for the signs that are in the everyday life, but in a symbol that is recognizable to you.
Right. And that's what we're talking about. This is just a language. The tarot, it really becomes a language that you can agree on, because like we said when we started this, God isn't going to likely, it happens, but God isn't likely to just show up and be like, or one of these angels. Yeah.
It's over here. Yeah.
Right.
Right here. Yeah.
Usually doesn't happen that way, unless you're like Moses or some shit, or or Jesus.
No, Moses had the burning bush.
Yeah, well, what's funny is that you're not actually wrong. It wasn't.
No, that man got high as hell.
Right, the Mount Sinai where that is. This is proof that you can go look this shit up. There are hallucinogenic. Like it's not mushrooms. It's not mushrooms. It's like moss, but it's some kind of fungus that grows in that area that is highly, and I mean highly, hallucinogenic. So yeah, when he had seen the burning bush, he was like, "Woo!" So that's,
he wasn't wrong,
right? And to be clear, that I myself, that doesn't negate the fact that because what I think that often happens now. You can also do scientific stuff with the head and da-da-da. But I think that often what is actually going on is that you're realizing a greater reality using hallucinogenics than you do in your everyday life.
It brings you to a different wavelength. That's what it does.
Right. Agreed.
It's like when you're having conversations with people and you make sense to one person, but you don't make sense to another, is because they're not able to comprehend the wavelength that you're speaking to. Sure. So say if you take a psychedelic and all it does is it projects you into your mental using a different wavelength to a different frequency to obtain certain vision, certain sight, some things like that. If you ingest or do anything and you reach I would like to say it's the most primal wavelength that you're at that moment. Sure. So if you take a psychedelic and you're in a bad fucking state of mind, well, guess what? You're going to have a nightmare trip and your hell has been brought to earth. Now, if you're like Woodstock and the shit, everybody's happy as hell and you pop a psychedelic, you're on fucking nirvana. Like, heaven has descended down to earth and everybody else is on that same specific wavelength and you're enjoying yourself. That is said psychedelic. And I think that's what God is to a degree. If you look at it like love is a high frequency. And if you are somewhat tapped to that frequency while you're on that certain said psychedelic, you might initially meet God and have the euphoria, or you go to hell and see what's up with the devil.
Yeah, and agreed. And there are a bunch of different instances of that happening throughout time, regardless. And I've experienced, and I want to be clear too, I have done my full fair share of psychedelics, as can be attested by a lot of people. I have done plenty. But the one thing I don't do generally, and I say generally because there have been a couple, because I'm about experimentation. There's been a couple of times that I have mixed my spirituality and a hallucinogen or whatever. That has happened, but I generally don't do it. And the reason I don't do it is because I like to go into a spiritual experience when I hear something or see something or feel something
without an altered consciousness. It's reality.
Right. And then I'm like, oh shit, I actually saw that shit. That was right. I saw it. I didn't imagine it. It wasn't created by some trip that I was on. I'm actually seeing it. And that's important to me because for me, in my mind, I need scientific proof. I need, one of the things that I like about Thomas Paine is he was a deist and he believed that we don't actually have any kind of communication with God. He believed that God created stuff and then kind of skedaddled. Yeah. But what I like about Thomas Paine is he said, but at the moment that I receive proof that that's not the case and that I can communicate with God, I'll believe in that. As soon as I have proof, as soon as I get to do that, then I'll believe in it because he held an open mind. He kept his mind open that it was possible. And I think that's all that should be required of somebody is, what I need is proof. I need something tangible to believe in.
Something to be brought in the forefront, like something that you can actually witness, see. It intensifies somebody's experience. So like whenever somebody's doing like they start speaking in tongues, mm-hmm. and like they feel that euphoria as if God's coming through, and that is like an example of said living in the what the fuck is the word? God damn you, High Nick. Tangible. It's a tangible thing. It's the tangible thing that you would love to experience. And I don't think I've had a said moment off of a psychedelic. No, I lied. I fucking lied. The first time I did acid, I experienced a sense of euphoria, like having a conversation. But the conversation was more so about cats. Now it sounds weird that it's about cats, but we were watching a video where the pictures were morphing. So cats were brought up because they were the feline, the feminine presence, and we brought up the feminine presence, and the feminine presence became about God, and then the euphoria started to hit, having more of an understanding about possibly what God is, even though I don't know shit about God. So but it is a very, very important thing to have, is a tangible experience, a tangible feeling when it comes to, especially, and I mean, if no other, a higher power, like a higher deity or something such as that. That's always an amazing sight that people are always reaching for. That's why they probably still. That's why everybody does drug. They drink, or they're addicted to something. They need some kind of euphoria to get them out of their hellhole that they live.
Sure. And there are better ways. Just to be clear, I'm not advocating for the use of anything. No. I'm just saying that I have, and there are better ways, and there are cleaner ways. The more pure ways are through things like prayer, meditation, and ritual, doing things to alter your consciousness that have more to do with those kinds of things. And so, again, the sorry, I was getting a phone call and I had to clear it off. But I have had a couple of experiences using psychedelics that I have to say were, informative of those kinds of things. One of them was long story short, we were using evocation, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and about the evocation that's calling usually an angel to talk to, and or a God form. There's a bunch of different things you can evoke, but it basically, you put invocations when you bring like an energy into yourself. Evocation is when you put it outside of yourself and you can talk to it.
So invocation is like when you have a Loa mounting you, and
right.
The other, what is it called?
Evocation.
Evocation is where it's projected in front of you, per se.
Sort of. Just so let me give the story, and that'll kind of cover how it is.
Okay.
We had called what's funny is we'd actually called the archangel. It would have been Michael, which is funny because you were talking about your Michael. We had called him, and we asked him, because one of the things that Michael can do is teach you communication. That's something he's good at. And so when we were talking to him, we asked him, and it was me and about 6 other people. We asked the archangel, who we had materialized into a mirror. And the archangel was present, and you could see him. I'm not saying it was as clear as I am, but there was something different in the mirror, and it was angelic shaped. It was like, which can be anything, just to be clear.
Yeah. But forewarning for people who don't know what angels look like, they can be like big old balls of pause, hear me out, circular things with the
they can be big old balls. You can't do.
Pause. Hear me out. They can be big spherical objects with wings and like a big ass eye and like maybe some teeth. They don't look pretty. They don't look so like all nice that y'all think. Y'all might get traumatized if you actually see one. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Some of them, like Kamiel, do not call Kamiel the Archangel of War. Bad idea. At least right out of the gate. You want to make that down the road. So, but yeah, he's challenging. Let's just say, but back to Michael, we asked him to teach us a new way to do evocation. We wanted to experience something new, a new way, and he said, "Sure enough, gotcha," and had no idea. Well, a friend of ours, just by chance, like the next week, had a bunch of acid that they was just given. Here, have some acid. And they, right, thank you. and of course, being a good friend, he said, "Hey, I got given some acid. Let's go fucking get trashed." And I was like, right on. Because I was like 22 or something like that. And so anyhow, but nothing was talked about that. But we started just because we had like new people, and I had a temple, and we took the new people at the beginning of this trip, right? They're tripping with us, right? So we're like, hey, you got to check out our temple, which was this big black room with circle on the floor and all kinds of craziness. And so we started by just doing a banishing. I was like, here, let me show you a banishing. So I did a banishing, which is how we start ritual, right? Yeah. And so long story short, we went through the process of doing what would be an evocation, but we did it while tripping, and we got the Archangel Hanael, which is in the order in the Kabbalah. It goes Michael, who is Mercury, and then it goes over to Netzach, which is Venus, which is Hanael. And Hanael is you would think, because it's Venus, it's going to be all about love, right? Yeah. And the night had a lot to do with love.
Venus. Oh, I know about
Venus. Yeah, Venus is also chaos, and Venus is also death. And it was a very interesting night. So how God decided to speak to me to that night was I was going to be my higher self, and I didn't know this. And what I lived in a 2-story house, and my wife at the time, it's not my wife I'm with now, but my wife at the time wasn't interested in any of this stuff. And she was sitting downstairs watching TV while tripping. She was watching Exit to Eden. And if anybody's seen Exit to Eden, it's about people beating each other.
Beating?
Yeah, beating. It's BDSM. Right. So she's watching that while everybody else is upstairs in a black light tripping their balls off. And so anyway, but I wanted to be a good husband, so I kept going downstairs and dealing with her. And when I'd go upstairs, it was all spiritual and all that kind of stuff. Then I'd have to walk down the stairs and be all sitting on the couch, being calm. And she just blitzed out of her mind watching the TV. We wound up sitting on the swing out front, and while we're tripping, the swing broke, and like it was an old house, had coal dust in it, and coal dust went everywhere. I'm tripping, and I've got little black dots all over me. So I wound up in the shower. But anyway, long story short, I spent the whole evening going up and down the stairs, and my friend Phil at the time, who was another spiritual person, he was like, just think, Mark, you do this to your consciousness all the time. You're constantly taking your mind and sending it out to the heavens while bringing your body back to the physical plane and having to do with physical things all the time. And I was like, and so I learned a bunch that night. But at the very least, what we experienced was Venus. We experienced the evocation of Venus in our life. It was all about death. It was all about chaos, and it was all about love and what love means and all of those kinds of things. So at the end of that, the enlightenment that we had, the communication that God had, is that we are, to me, was that we are constantly learning. That every time that we think that we've got it, we just got that level. And we came up with this word, which was Orf, because we were talking about rising through the tree of life. And we wanted a word that represented what it means when you get to the top and then find out there's just another tree.
Yeah.
It's just
you're not done with this shit. Just
right.
Toilet, my boy.
That's right. So we called it Orf, and we would sit there and we'd be talking through the night, and we'd be like blah blah blah, talking about spiritual stuff, and then we'd all pause and go, Orf, new tree, and it would go on. But my point in bringing that up is that I have had some meaningful understandings that were brought about by drugs, and I do believe that God can communicate through that manner. But there are better ways. I think divination, like we talked about earlier, is much safer and frankly more dependable.
Yeah, less afflicting to the body,
Correct.
And it's a way to be able to tap into that consciousness without needing to like alter it with said drug.
Right. Well, and again, it's not just what it does to you physically. You can lose your brain. I know a guy who got pulled over
mentally as well.
Right. I know a guy that got pulled over by the pigs, and he had and I use the gender neutral term pig. And so he got pulled over by the pigs, and he had a sheet of acid, which is 100 hits. Generally, you take 1 to 10. He took all 10, all 100. I just ate it. And he's still tripping today. And so yeah, he lost his fucking mind. But it didn't go to jail. At least not a physical one.
How did he manage to like stay sane while looking at the cops? Because I know it hit faster than 30 minutes. If he took he chewed a whole sheet. His brain is mush.
Yeah, I know the dude now, and I don't know him well. I
wonder where he's at mentally. Like, yeah, he's not here, but like, you know how like when you don't ground yourself for so long, like, I wonder what astral plane that he's in right now.
Yeah, some other one.
Like, not swimming. There should be a movie about this man.
Right, for sure. Yeah, this dude, and he can't hold down a job because he gets freaked out because he's still tripping. Yeah. What people don't know if they've never done acid is that you really, like, once you get past about generally, and then there's different kinds and all of this, and I'm not going to get into all that, but generally when you get past 4, you're just adding length. You're not going to get any more fucked up. You're just going to make it longer. Oh, he took a sheet, so he's still fucking with it. And but yeah, he's out of it. So again, I think that there are safer ways for most people. The only conversation they need to have with God is in a pew, sitting and paying attention to whatever the hell their preacher's talking about.
Factual.
You know, because not everybody needs this kind of communication. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get it, there are ways. And I think divination is a good place to start. I think that, and it doesn't have to be tarot. That's the one I chose. There are a bunch of different, like Nicco was talking about runes. I know a dude, actually the guy that was calling me earlier, his name's Kevin, and he does runes. And so that's a common thing too. There's also I Ching, which is a Chinese system. There's a bunch of different ones. And what they teach you is the language of God. If you're going to try to talk to God, God doesn't, like we talked earlier, he doesn't say, hi, this is God. I thought I'd just come over and hang out. There's a language that God has. And really that language is silence, to go back to Rumi. But when we're talking about God communicating with mankind, we're talking about God taking a kind of a step down so that he can communicate with mankind, which is something we can contact. It's not the totality of God, but it is still a poor translation. It is. And one of the things that is good about learning divination tools is it gives you that language that you can, because generally God communicates to the subconscious, and the subconscious works in symbols. So when we learn these symbols, and this isn't just for, crazy people like Nicco and I, there are symbols that are used within the Bible constantly. Mm-hmm. And the idea of, just to use an example, you're supposed to emulate Jesus. You're supposed to become more like Jesus. And he gives you lots of parables on how to do that. He gives you lots of indications on how to follow in his way. And you can find, if you start to do that, and Chad's talked about this to a large extent with the saints, when you start to emulate Jesus, you get shit on, you get crucified. Because that's part of that program. You've got to separate yourself from the physical world and in that religious framework. And because of that, that's going to take some work. So you're going to have a bad day once in a while. And Jesus had the ultimate bad day. And so that happens. So it's good to build up this understanding of what language God may be using to communicate with you. And
I got
go ahead.
25 of them that if you're interested in any of these, you should look more into it. And don't be surprised. So you got mythological analogies, you got bestiary and Book of Logic, Animal Wildlife, herbals, herb gardens. You got teas, incense, intentional candles, long matches, coins, dice, crystals, mirrors, scarring bowls, moon water, divination water, pen or pencil, ink, salt, card holder, sacred text, book of poetry, the divination, a notebook or journal, astrology, color wheel, the divination board or pouch, your own tuition. So those are a couple if you're interested in any of them.
Right. And a lot of those in that list, one way or another, I think that we everybody does to one degree. One of the things that was talking about is like, bibliomancy is a thing. If where you just like you ask a question, open the Bible, pick wherever your finger's at. That's what you read.
Actually, that's happened to me one time. That's happened to me twice. Actually, I was using crystals, and I had a crystal in my hand, and it was over a book, and I was like, give me some info. And then I flipped it open, and it came right to this book, and I'm like, oh, I'm a bad bitch. Who got it? no, I'm just kidding. But what'd you call it? I was like, what the hell? Like, I was kind of confused, and I've started using it more and more, and it's been fairly an intriguing chapter that I've been having with minerals and rocks, if you will.
And crystals are a good tool, and you can use them for divination too. You can both do the scrying thing in them.
Crystals are ancient technology that people aren't aware of. When you can really like tap into that shit, when you're silent with God, when you're sitting down with His best and most quote unquote simple things, you will be amazed. You go up to a tree and hug it for like 30 minutes. If you sad and depressed, go see what happened. Like, there's so many things that you can do, like with the basic tools of nature, that people don't understand the technology of it.
Oh, for sure. Are you familiar with Illuminati Congo?
No, I am
rapper. Not. You should check him out, dude. I think he's actually from Chicago.
Let me see what this is about.
But yeah, Illuminati Congo. He number one, he's distrustful of the government. Love that, but he's also like he's got a whole. I think it's the field. He's got several videos that, but one of them he goes through different crystals and what they're used for. It's a really interesting video. I wish I could remember. It might be the field, but there's several of his songs that I suggest. I think you'd really vibe with Illuminati.
Yeah, he's from Chicago, hip hop reggae.
Yeah, I think you'd dig him, dude.
I've seen him before.
Yeah. So now I want to. So the basics of talking to God is the divination stuff and having some kind of tool. But I want to expand that. There are ways to directly communicate with God. Now, Nicco had mentioned the Ouija board, and that is one of the things. Again, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clear your space. You're going to have to know some stuff, and you're going to need to know how to banish. You're going to need to know how to identify spirits. Those are all things that you're going to have to pick up before you can do, frankly, any of this. And if you want to know, hit me up in the comment section, and I can get you some suggested reading, because it would take a very long time to do so now. Because again, this isn't something that you're just going to walk out. Most people just need to pray. That's it. That's all they need. That's communication they got. The next level of people are going to do some divination. What you can do from beyond that is direct communication, and generally there are two ways to do that. And one of them is, and it is actually a form of evocation, is using a spirit board of some kind to communicate. It's not the best way. It's not the way that I use, because there are better ways. The better way to do evocation is there is a particular formula. And what you do is you construct what's called a magical circle, which is what protects your ass. And some of these movies get this shit all fucked up. You want to be sitting in a circle. And the reason that you want to be in that circle, and I mean something drawn on the floor, there is a physical thing. Yeah. And the reason you want to do that is because it gives you your mind. Remember, the subconscious works is what you're communicating with, and it works in symbols. So when you see that circle physically on the floor, you're looking at something that is a barrier, and you want a barrier. You want to be safe. And the next thing you want to do is you want to banish. You want to get rid of, and there are a variety of ones. We have the internet. Go look it up. The simplest thing you can do is, like Nicco was talking about, you can throw some crystals on the floor. That makes sense. Quartz is a good one. You can also use some of the black stones like obsidian. Those kinds of things are really good at banishing. So you can throw that stuff around, maybe put them around in a circular form and kill two birds with one stone. But but what you can also do is you can burn frankincense, you can burn in smell.
White sage or Palo Santos.
Right, both of those are really good. Sandalwood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are good scents to kind of, and I would actually use all of these just so you know. But you can throw all this stuff out to clear your area. But I personally feel comfortable doing a ritual, which is more or less, somebody described ritual magic as prayer with props. And I think that that's really the large.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah. It's, you know, hey, God, I don't want anybody fucking with me. You know, and I'm waving shit around to make sure of it. And that's largely how it works. And so you clear your space, you make your space clean. And I mean clean. You don't just want to get rid of negative spirits. You don't want to just get rid of the like demons and those kinds of things. You want to get rid of positive ones. And you might be like, but I need all the help I can get. I agree. But if you're trying to do an evocation, you're trying to talk to something specific. And let's say that thing you're trying to talk to is the archangel. Let's go back to Michael. You're trying to talk to Michael, and he's the archangel of Mercury. So you don't want Venus fucking up all your Mercury. So you want to get rid of Venus too. You want to get rid of all of the energy regardless, and then call something into the triangle that you've placed outside of your circle. And it's consecrated. There's, like I said, this is the Cliff Notes. You want to do some research if you're going to do this.
Yep.
But
please do, because I don't want no motherfucking dirt being thrown on Papa Legba's name again because some spirit's like, oh, we gonna fuck up his name again. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Look up what you need to.
Right. But then what you do is there is a set of like tools that you will use to evoke, to call whatever that angel is. Usually there's a symbol that's associated with them. You've put that and other things that are associated with them on the triangle. And then you have to give them something to make a body out of. Now you can use a shortcut and use a mirror, which I've done multiple times, and they can appear within a mirror that's sitting in the triangle. And they can just cheat, and you just make the lights a little dim so your eyes are a little fucked up, because you got to trick yourself into seeing this shit, because your conscious mind is going to fight you the whole way. And so you've kind of done that. All right. But my suggestion is you get something thick that's appropriate. For Mercury, Storax, which is an incense, is really good at getting a physical body together. You want a lot. And I mean a lot. You want a pillar of
what?
Storax. Benzoin will also work. And but they're both incenses, and you want to burn a lot of it. You want a bunch of incense in that triangle, because what's going to happen is that spirit is going to use that, because remember, it is not a physical being.
It needs a vessel.
Right. And so it's going to use that smoke to create an image of itself. And this has happened, just so people, and I'm either lying or I'm crazy, I realize, but I've had it happen. I have seen multiple angels, and I've used this method to get there. And basically they show up. Now, they don't have vocal cords. This is the drawback to this kind of conversation, is that they can't physically speak. So you're going to be hearing all this shit in your noggin. So it could be you, right? You could be seeing some weird shit, and it's your mind that's creating the narrative, right? That's all possible. So I like proof. So that is one method. The other is transmediumship or possession. People don't like the word possession because it brings them back to the exorcist demon, vomit everywhere. And I don't suggest any of this shit with demons because they're not potty trained. They're going to shit all over your temple. And I don't mean actually. I mean you call a demon.
They're not house trained. They're not civil. They weren't brought here to be civil. You feel me?
Right. They're going to tear shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've played. I've had one just take daggers to the fucking wall, and they're not pleasant. So
they said, "Let me add some decorations."
Right? Yeah. Have fun with that. And to be clear, I've also had one because I was a dumbass. Remember that circle I talked about? My dumbass. Because again, test. You've got to there are names, there are things that you will learn if you track this down on how you have to know this stuff. And like for instance, you have to know God names, you have to know different things that they are that recognize them. And if it's not them, which I've had happen, where they've been bullshitting me, and I'm like, okay, you failed. And they're like, that's because I'm not actually who I am. And my dumbass took a toe out of the fucking circle like a dumbass because I thought I was powerful. Had a sword in hand because the sword is one of the weapons that you can use. Had this sword in hand coming at this big glob in the like over the triangle, this big dark image. And when I say big, it was every bit of the height of the ceiling, which was about 8 feet. So it was huge. So my dumbass comes barreling at it with a sword, and my foot exited the circle. And it sent me flying backwards 6 feet, literally, in front of people. Other people saw this. This happened. And my ass went flying backwards because he hit me, and it hurt to my soul. And so, again, demons are a bad idea. So you want to call something. I would actually start with the archangels. That's the best, most divine things, and they're relatively easy to get to show up. So anyhow, you get them there and you talk. But to go back to the other one, it is transmediumship. Transmediumship allows a spirit outside of the circle, generally, if you have a circle, because in voodoo it's a different paradigm, and they're allowed in your sacred space, so it's different. Very long story, I'm not going to get into it, but they have control to one level or another. Very seldom does the person actually lose full consciousness. Very, very seldom. It does happen, but not very often. Mm-hmm. Usually you're just kind of impressed, but what it allows for is for that spirit to speak. Whereas with evocation, you get a C. Mm-hmm. With transpossession or transmediumship, you get to hear. And for me, seeing's cool. I like the proof. I want to hear what the fuck they have to say. That's the shit I'm looking for. Because
do they even sound like anything from here?
It depends. To give you an idea, the very first time that I ever experienced someone else who was transpossessed, I was at there's a magical fraternity that I'm a member of called the Ordo Templi Orientis, or the OTO. I'm not active now, and conspiracy theorists are going to go nuts because they're tied in with Masons and all that craziness. Mm-hmm. But at the Gnostic Mass, which is very similar to the Catholic Mass, except for you have a naked chick on an altar. So it's kind of like the Catholic Mass with a bonus. Right. Not only do you get not only do you get cookies and wine, you also get a naked chick. But anyhow, I was very impressed by the beautiful brown eyes of the woman that was the priestess. I had met her the night of the ritual, and she had beautiful brown eyes. And I remember specifically that she had beautiful brown eyes. And I walked up the stairs, because there's 3 steps in front of the altar that she's sitting on, to look directly into her blue eyes. And she spoke to me in an otherworldly way, and I went directly to my knees, because this is the first time I had ever experienced anything like this, and it literally took my feet out from underneath me. I could not stand, because the power was so strong and so like filled with like the divine love that I had never experienced before. Because one of the things that happens in these kinds of events is, when I say communicate, it's not just words. God communicates in emotion. God communicates in feeling. You can feel his presence. And because of that, I did. And that was really the first time that I had experienced someone else who had what was possessed. Now, she wasn't like 100% not herself. She was cognizant of what was going on, but the feeling of goddessness, of the divine feminine, was certainly there. And so I got to feel that. Okay. Now, since then, I have experienced, direct communication where but the truth is, to your question, Nicco, sometimes they talk very similar to the way we talk. It depends on the spirit. Damballa, as an example, he's a voodoo loa of truth.
Isn't it the snake?
Yes, he's a white snake. And he's generally at least quiet, and very often doesn't say a word. He speaks with gestures, and he speaks with energy. And so, but sometimes they speak in other languages. Sometimes you've got to, you'll be in ritual and they'll be babbling some shit off, and you're like, I don't know what he was talking about. And then you go look it up, and it's in Greek, and the person that was transpossessed doesn't know Greek, and so that happens. And
that's interesting.
Right. So it depends. What I have found is that for me, and this is entirely me, I've worked with lots of different spirits. And again, these are, in my belief, these are emanations of God. I believe that the angels are pieces of God that he sends to us as messengers. That's what I believe. And I believe that the voodoo loa are very similar, that these are just pieces of God that he sends out.
Yeah.
And I personally prefer the loa. And the reason that I personally prefer the loa is because they don't like have any pomp and circumstance. There's no, I'm the archangel of this and that and the other thing.
They're loose. They're much more loose opposed to formal.
Right. And I just want to hang out with God. The thing that I want is to sit around the fire with God and bullshit. Be like, oh, how was creation?
Shoot the shit with God, have a sip of bourbon, and that'd be actually pretty dope. That'd be fire.
Yeah. So those are really the methods. And again, this we're not going to cover. We don't have time. Because just to get because we were talking about symbol sets, again, if you want to talk to God in this depth, you got to learn a bunch of shit.
Wait. Question though, like now that you say that the archangels are more formal, aren't like, or isn't like the Haitian Lola, like their lore very compatible with the saints?
They are. And again, these are just faces. These are just an image that
we've created.
Correct.
Has tangibly stuck. So therefore it has a certain energy / presence to its being.
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. There's no difference, really. And I learned this from the Archangel Tzadkiel, who is the Archangel of Jupiter. And mercy and peace and all of those kinds of things. He, when I was calling him, in the process of calling them, one of the things you do is you learn how to astral project, and you astral project to wherever they're at. And I went to Hesed, which is the sphere on the tree of life that is associated with Jupiter. So I go there, and usually what happened, like when I'm dealing with Mikael, I'm like, hey, dude, here's your test. I'm going to make sure you're the right person. Here's doing all this stuff. And then, come on, let's go head back to the temple so everybody can play. That's generally my modus operandi. Well, with Zadkiel, it didn't work like that. With him, I get there, and here's this dude in white with a blue sash on, long brown hair. Sounded familiar? Dude looks straight up like Jesus. Just straight up like Jesus.
I just got the picture of Jesus straight in my head.
Yeah, right. Just straight up looks like Jesus. And I'm like, I'm like, all right, dude. I tested him, did all the stuff, and I'm like, all right, let's get back. And he's like, no, let's stay a while. He's like, we're not doing that. And so he and I had a conversation, and I was like, I gotta say, dude. And of course, this is more formal. I'm telling a story, so I'm spicing it up a bit. But, I was like, hey, dude, you look an awful lot like Jesus. What's up with that? And he said, well, what it is I am Jesus to a degree. Now, I'm not the fullness of what Jesus is, but I am that, Jesus, ministering to his people. That's what I do. That's my job, if you will. And some people understand that as Jesus. Other people understand that as Krishna. It's blue. Krishna's blue. It's about saving people, about peace, about being the minister of peace, all those kinds of things. He said, we don't put the names. He said, my name's not Zadkiel. I don't have a name. He was like, I am the energy behind what that is. And so we had this conversation, and he kind of informed me about what it means to be a spirit and how that is. And so, you can make an argument that, for instance, the sun, right? That's a bunch of different things. Jesus can very easily be the sun. You've got Legba, Ra. There's so many different emanations, and it's us. We're the ones. God is infinite. We're the ones who, you look like Jesus. That's my mind. Jesus was from the Middle East. He is not a white dude. I hate to tell these people this.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Right. He's not a white dude. He does not. The image that we have, just for funsies, the image we have of Jesus is actually of Jupiter. It is they took it directly from a temple in I believe it was in Italy too, and I could be wrong about that, but it was a temple to Jupiter. And just so people know, if you translate the name Jupiter, it's Eu Pater, which means heavenly father. Right.
Symbology, themin, and etymology, fully
yeah, right. So again, these entities, if you will, are not as clear cut as we'd like for them to be. They overlap. They are just a image, and that image is catered to what we want and need, not what they want and need. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. That answers my question. That answers various and in depth. I actually never knew that Jesus was Jupiter.
Well, the image that we have of him is what, because what they did, they were destroying, as the Christians were coming across Europe, they were destroying temple after temple after temple after temple. Like,
when they're with their big old fun crusades,
right?
Yeah, and just, no, this is my God and your God too. Your God is my God. Like,
right? No. Yeah, knocking shit down. Big temples of particularly female goddesses got destroyed. They just
they didn't like that at all. They most definitely focused the Holy Bible around the masculine traits.
Correct.
They eradicated a lot of feminine and made it majority and primarily around masculine ideology.
Although the people said, fuck you, and started, venerating Mary.
Yeah.
They were like,
no, there are some other, like, I guess, segments of religion that are connected to the Bible that still honor and praise the woman. and the female. It's more about like dissecting it and like which practice are you. So like if you're like Seventh-day Adventist or Lutheran or whatever those other things are. But you get what I'm saying, right?
I do. But yeah, when they got to the temple that I'm talking about, what they basically did was the Romans that were, because largely the Christian army was the Roman army. When the Romans got there, they were like, all right, that's Jesus. They saw the big thing, a Jupiter, and looking all powerful and all of that stuff. And they're like, and he's beautiful, just beautiful. And they're like, that's him. Even though the Bible says he has a pitted face, which basically means he had bad acne. So, just because, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, that beauty and all of that. But yeah, they decided to keep the statue and turned it into a church and said, that's Jesus. And the image stuck. And that's how you wind up with a white Jesus. Greek.
That makes some sense. My question is, where did the variation change? So like the variation, well, everybody's ritual that they do to go to talk to God is genuinely at a dinner table, or if they wake up, if you're very devoted. But where did like it really shift from like using tools? Was it just the Christian faith? But the Christian faith has the rosary. It has the rosary. What other tools?
Yeah, they have other tools. I mean, the Roman Catholics use a lot of tools. They have cups. They have as much shit as we do. I mean, they just do. They whether, because there's symbols like for instance, on the cup. If you ever notice that there's always a cover on the cup that
there's
they
a cover
have
on top of the cup.
Yeah, that's earth and water, and everything has a symbol. They just shifted it.
It's just very, very basic. They just don't really put it in the basic point of view.
Well, one of the things that happened with Christianity early on is that, and this isn't to fault Christians, this is to fault the early,
the establishment that had, right.
Yeah, and so what they did was they were like, now these secrets are for us. Mm-hmm. You could just show up, give us money, and we'll tell you what to do. That's you got to remember, until Martin Luther, very few people had ever even read the Bible because it wasn't allowed. Mm-hmm. They kept that shit away from the regular people.
They sure did. And it was only the priest that had it.
Right.
And you would come in to listen to my sermons during the Sundays and whatever other days that you'd go into church.
Yeah.
But it would be very often because that was their bread and butter.
Right, which you wouldn't mind. I mean, come on. If imagine this. People miss the reason that people went to church. Right now, if you go to church, generally on a Sunday, often, this is now, they'll have a big dinner, right? At some point during the day.
My grandmother's church, they did.
Yeah, often. Now, it's less now than it used to be, but it used to be every Sunday. They'd have a big kitchen. Mm-hmm. And everybody'd bring just a little bitty thing that they'd add to the thing, and everybody'd share, right? Well, when you're poor as shit and you're bringing porridge, to the thing, and the priest brought meat, you're like, here's my porridge. I want a cut of that turkey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the poor people would show up to church because, fuck, they're going to feed us. Well, right.
Yeah. Big facts, big facts.
Right. So I guess, do you want to start kind of, because we're past the hour, do you want to start wrapping up?
We could talk a little bit more. Oh, actually, I got to go fix my dad's car because I kind of scraped it yesterday leaving.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's all right, though.
So just to kind of wrap up, I guess, then, Nicco and I aren't here to tell you that you should contact God, that you should do what we do. I'm not here preaching. I'm not trying to convert nobody.
Nope.
What I am saying is that God is there. And again, I will go back to what I said in the beginning. Most people only need to pray. pray.
Disclaimer. Sit your ass down if you ain't ready or prepared to see anything that you just don't want living in your head rent free for the rest of your life. That's basically what we're saying.
Yeah. Well, that breaking of the consciousness we talked about with that guy that ate an entire fucking sheet of acid, that can happen.
Yeah.
If you are not prepared by, how do you prepare? Praying a lot. You got, get your faith right. You should not be trying to talk to God if you're unsure he exists. Don't do that. This is a step by step. Pray a lot. Get your inclination. Start proving to yourself that there's a God. Once you've got at least significant proof to your head and you need to take it to another level, then do so. Again, most people just need to fucking pray. And I would say most people need to pray. I've said it a billion times.
Y'all don't pray enough. Y'all don't pray enough. Pray at least 3 times a day. When the sun rises or when you get up out of bed, in the middle of the day when you're eating your lunch, and then at night after your dinner, before your dinner, just pray. Just have a conversation with something, someone, something, some omnipotent, whatever you want to call it. Even if you want to call it air, because guess what? If you think air is nothing, I gotcha, because that's what you're breathing in. You live your life off of it. Like, it's something that is very essential to you that you don't necessarily take in consideration every day. It's there, but it's not there. But that's besides the point. Sit down and pray. Pray for like you and yourself and getting to be much more like, I guess, comfortable in yourself, in your body, in your mental state, and pray for your family. Talk to God about like the simple things, about like how your day went and like how it could have went. You feel me? Be much more appreciative of everything that you come in contact with, opposed to being so prepared to disassociate from it.
Amen. I want to, because I can hear Chad, one of the big things that you should pray for is to be in the company of God. You should be praying every day to do God's will.
Yeah.
One of the things that I pray every day is that I can become a tool for God's grace. That's my prayer. That's what I want every single day. Now, I don't think that I get to be that as often as I would like. When God needs me, one day I'm going to say, I'm here as your tool, make use of me. And he's going to say, bet. And he'll use me for whatever it is. But maybe he needed me to talk to Nicco tonight. Yeah. And maybe that's what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, factual.
So if you want no information, I suggest you get a hold of me via or Nicco for that matter, via the comment section. We'd love to answer any questions that you have. Check out, give the plug for your Tarot stuff, man.
Oh, yeah. I have, you can follow me on Instagram. I don't think I have my Instagram plugged up for this, but I have an Instagram and I have a YouTube page for my tarot readings. And I also do astrology and numerology breakdowns. And I help people like with their energy and like how to move with it. You may call it nonsense, but like give me like 10 minutes of your time and I will promise you, like, you'll be like, oh wow, this guy is actually the bee's knees. But bees don't have knees, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, no. Those are my 2 main platforms. I do have a link tree, and it's also connected to this. So like either or, you'll either go to this channel or my other channel. So I'll have that actually set up in the description box for the next episode or this episode. Either or, we can edit it. So yeah, no, I'll have it dropped in the description box below, and then yeah, just go ahead and stop on by and let me read your mind. Let me stop.
Right on. Well, and the number one thing y'all need to do though is stay free, my friends. Thanks.
Peace.